Hello, welcome to Jason the Old Millennial. My name is Jason. I'm speaking to you here in my basement in the great state of Kansas. And today I'm continuing my series on my top 100 favorite albums all time. Today I'm doing numbers 84 and number 83 on my list. So let's go with number 84, which is the album Sports by Huey Lewis and the News. It's their third studio album, and it came out in 1983, the year I was born, so pretty good year in my opinion. It has 9 songs on it. Uh, I'd say 7 of the 9 songs were written or co-written by Huey Lewis, so he even more than the second album, which was Picture This, which I've talked about before on another video. It came at number 98 on my top 100 favorite albums. This one higher at 84. Um, yes, I think on that one, Huey Lewis co-wrote many of the songs on there. I think even more on this one, so he definitely has a big hand in the writing. But it's a very collaborative effort. It doesn't seem like it's just one person. It's usually 2 people at least on each song, and they're all band members. So it's all original music mostly, except for 1 or 2 maybe. Um, yeah, I think there's only 2 that weren't written by the band. One was written by Hank Williams, Honky Tonk Blues, which is my least favorite song on this album. I would say 8 of the 9 songs are really good, and the ninth one, the last one, not very good, but 9 songs, so not a lot of songs on here actually, kind of a little bit lower than normal, I would say. But this is a real, every song almost on this album is a hit song or a song that I've heard before, which is very unusual. Usually I listen to some of these albums for the first time and I've only know a couple songs on them, sometimes none of the songs, and yet I maybe hear some that I really like. Uh, Talk about just naming some of these songs on here. You probably heard of "The Heart of Rock and Roll," "Heart and Soul," "Bad is Bad," "I Want a New Drug," "Walking on a Thin Line," "Finally Found a Home," and "If This Is It." I would say those 7. I feel like I've heard those 7. I know I've heard most of those, and even the ones I'm not sure about, they sound really familiar. Like I've heard all these on the radio, so that's pretty unusual. Usually, I guess the way I think of a hit song is if I've heard it on the radio before, and I've listened to a lot of oldies stations, that play 60s, 70s, 80s music, and listen to that. You do hear some Huey Lewis and News were pretty huge in the 80s, so you do hear some of his music on there. Um, and Yeah, I feel like I've heard all these songs on the radio. So if they're on the radio, they probably were somewhat hits at the time. So that's pretty incredible. Usually, I only know, like I said, maybe 1 or 2 of them are on the radio, but to have like maybe 7 songs all hit the radio, that's the only other album I know on top of my mind is like "Rumors" from Fleetwood Mac would be the other one that I've heard that seems like almost every song is a radio song. So it's a very radio friendly album, I would say. That's why it's of course high, not real high, but higher on my list at 84. I'm not a huge Huey Lewis and News fan, but I really like this album and Picture This album though. I thought were very good albums. They're very, like I said before, just I call it 80s pop rock music. It definitely has an 80s sound to it, which isn't bad in this case. I think it's very good. I'm not always a fan of 80s style. 80s decade is not one of my favorite decades of music, but I find myself really enjoying like this one with Huey Lewis and Huey Lewis and News. It's very catchy. The music's guitar, and it's got saxophone in it. I'll do like a good saxophone solo, so I've actually been enjoying hearing these saxophone solos in these songs, as I was a saxophone player in high school, and junior high, so I do like the saxophone quite a bit. Um, but yeah, this is the same members I talked about before. Huey Lewis, of course, is the lead vocalist, plays harmonica and saxophone, so that's why you hear a lot of saxophone on the records. Also, like major songwriter, like I said. Chris Hayes is the lead guitar player, backing vocals. Johnny Cola, rhythm guitar, saxophone, backing vocals. Mario Cipollina as bass. Bill Gibson, drums. Sean Hopper, keyboards and backing vocals. And the backing vocals, I said before, are really good actually. I like Huey Lewis. I think it's a good lead singer. I really like his voice. It's kind of a rock pop singer, and the vocals are really good. There's lots of he'll say a line, and then the backing vocals will harmonize in the background. We'll say a line, maybe repeat the line back. And I've always enjoyed that in music. Always enjoyed when bands do that. Just not just one singer, but multiple singers singing in the band. I think they do a pretty good job with it. Like I said, there's 5 5 singles on this album. That's pretty unusual. Usually I get to an album, there's 2 or 3 3 at the most. Usually maybe 2 singles off an album. But this has 5 singles coming off this album. Heart and Soul went number 8 on the single charts. I Want a New Drug went number 6, and The Heart of Rock and Roll went number 6, and If This Is It went number 6. So you got 3 songs here that reached number 6, which was I read something like it says something like it was the second highest single charting that they've had in their career, and they had 3 of them at number 6. And then Walking on Thin Line went number 18. So you have 4 or 5 songs all in the top 20, 4 of them top 10. So I mean that's pretty. I mean that's a huge album. This album did really really well. It sold a whole lot of records, as you can imagine. It was number 1 in the U.S. charts, so it was the number 1 album in the U.S. at this time. Number 23 in the U.K. and number 3 in Canada. So UK, it's maybe more of an American band. Huey Lewis, not as big in the UK, but still did okay. Number 23 on there. So yeah, it's a huge album. Certified U.S. 7 times platinum, which first time I've seen that really. So really great in the U.S. Sold a lot of records. UK gold and Canada diamond. So yeah, very popular band at this time. Third album. Second album I said is also on my list, so 2 really good albums back to back. Second, third, Picture This and Sports anyway. So very good for Huey Lewis and the News. Yeah, so let's go to my top 3. Number 3 is Finally Found a Home. For me, as I'm listening to this album a couple times, I find Finally Found Home to be one I sung a lot to myself. And I kind of figure out, when I'm trying to figure out top 3, which this was hard because there's a lot of choices here for top 3. And for me, if I'm singing the song in the shower and it got in my head and it's, I can't get it out of my head, it must have been a pretty good song. And this is maybe one of the best ones on this album that just, I finally found a home is like the chorus. Very catchy, very well done. Number 2 is Heart and Soul, which is song that I've heard a lot. One of the songs I've heard the most, maybe on the radio. Very well done song. And then number 1 is If This Is It. Really great song. Love the saxophone in it. Love the backing vocals. Even the lyrics of, if this is it, then let me know. Or something about I'll go. Like, tell me if, this is love. If not, then I'm leaving. But, hopefully it is love. One of the best songs, I think, of all time for Huey Lewis and the News. Definitely top 5 favorite song of his. I like the Picture This. That album had Do You Believe in Love, I think, which was their biggest hit at that time. And then until this album had tons of hits on it. That's one of my favorite. And then this is maybe right after that. But I also really love Power of Love and Back in Time from Back to the Future movies, which I just recently talked about the trilogy Back to the Future. Really love those movies. First one especially has the those 2 Huey Lewis News songs. And when I think of Huey Lewis and News, I think of Back to the Future. So I have a lot of, some fond memories or fond thoughts of Huey Lewis and the News anyway. So, but yeah, this is it. Yeah, one of their best for sure. So that's number 84 on my list, Sports from Huey Lewis and the News. And so let's go to number 83 on my list. And this is Sounds of Silence from Simon and Garfunkel, which came out in 1966, and this is their second studio album. I talked about their first studio album. I've already talked about their album. It came, I think, 89 on my list. Yeah, Wednesday Morning, 3 a.m., which was their first studio album. It's number 89 on my list, so I like that album quite a bit too. And I talked about on that when I talked about that video, and I'll kind of talk about it again on this one. It was so interesting because Wednesday Morning, 3 a.m. was not a hit record. It was not successful at all. They made it and then didn't do anything. And on that album was the Sound of Silence was on that album, but it was an acoustic version of the song, not really the version that you hear on the radio today. You usually hear the electric version, which is on this album. But yeah, it wasn't a hit. Didn't have any hit singles off of it. They kind of split up. Paul Simon goes to England and lives in England for like a year playing music over there. And I think he comes out with an album called like the Paul Simon Songbook. And he even falls in love with a girl there and all this. And then while he's over there and Uh, Garfunkel is going to Columbia University, I believe. Um, the producer of that album uh, takes the Sound of Silence. It becomes a hit song in like Florida and Massachusetts for some reason. He finds that, oh, it's got some playtime here. Maybe we got something here. He adds electric guitar and a bass and a drum to the song, remixes the song without Simon and Garfunkel even knowing this is happening, puts it back out. It becomes a number one hit. Of course, if you know that song, it's one of the best songs of all time. One of my favorite songs of the 60s for sure. Really great song. Of course, that's a song you usually hear on the radio, is the electric version. Um, that comes a huge hit, number one hit. Of course, Simon and Garfunkel come back together to make another album. Of course, after the first album was not a hit, I'm sure the record company was like, "Oh, we don't need to make any more albums. They're not a hit. You know, they don't make hits, or they didn't do anything. We don't think they're going to do anything." But then when that came number one, I'm sure the record company was like, "Come back and do another album. Let's make another album. Put this song, this new remix on there, and it's going to be a hit album." And it did, yeah, quite a bit better than the first one for sure. And like I said, I have it at number 83, so I like it quite a bit. Not quite a bit more. They're both in the 80s, but on my list. But yeah, definitely an improvement of the first one. There are 11 songs on here. Like I said, the most well-known ones: "The Sound of Silence," "I Am a Rock," which is another big hit of theirs, and then "Kathy's Song" is the one I've heard of a little bit. A really great song of theirs, or kind of the ones that I'm most familiar with on this album. Um, yeah, so well, I was gonna say what I like about this one compared to the first one, "Wednesday Morning 3 A.M." is that album. Paul Simon wrote maybe half the songs on there, and the other half were cover songs. Um, and in fact, and I said on that video, my favorite songs on the album were the songs that are written by Paul Simon. 'Cause of course, he's such a great, one of the all-time great songwriters. Um, and so, of course, he was young in his career at that point. They didn't know if he could write hit songs. Of course, after Sound of Silence becomes a hit, of course, and then he becomes a hit songwriter. This one, he writes all the songs, and some of the songs are similar to other songs that I think he heard in England. And in fact, I think he wrote all this music when he was in England, and he was playing music there, and he did a lot of writing. So I think he wrote a lot of this music there, because there are some references to, I think, London in some of the songs, if I remember right. So you can kind of hear that. But yeah, all the songs written by him, which I think is great. Paul Simon should be writing all the songs. Like I said, great songwriter, even this early in his career. Yeah, it's great. Uh, Singles, there's 2 singles coming off of this album. "The Sound of Silence," like I said, was number 1 in the U.S., number 4 in Canada. And then "I Am a Rock" was number 3 in the U.S., number 6 in Canada, and number 17 in the U.K. So, I mean, 2 pretty big hits. One number 1 hit, and then number 3. So, and those are 2 songs that definitely, if you know Simon Garfunkel, you know those 2 songs. They're played quite a bit. If you get any kind of greatest hits records, those are on them for sure. It charted number 21 in the U.S., so quite a bit. It didn't chart at all the first album, so this one quite a bit better, number 21. Also number 13 in the UK, so even better in the UK. It did pretty well. Of course, I've said this before, and I'll say this in other videos when I talk about Simon Garfunkel. You know, one of my favorite all-time groups, called folk rock group of the 60s. I love their harmonizations. Their voices just mesh together so well. Art Garfunkel has that really high tenor voice that sounds so great to Simon's voice. Love the acoustic guitar playing. Simon's a great guitar player. Love his arrangement of music. Yeah, so I love like I said, all these songs are very solid songs. I don't think there's a bad song here. Like I said, those 3, you know, "Leaves That Are Green," "April Come She Will," really good songs. Yeah, they're not as well known, but yeah, I think you listen to the whole album, everything's good on here. So my top 3 songs on this album, they're pretty simple. They're 3 songs most people have put on their list. Number 3, "Kathy's Song." Really great acoustic, just song about Kathy. I believe he had a girlfriend named Kathy from England, maybe. Should be about, I mean, you would think would be about. But yeah, very excellent song, "Kathy's Song." Great songwriting from Paul Simon. Number 2, "I'm a Rock." You know, just great guitar playing and that acoustic guitar playing, and very catchy. "I am a rock, I am an island." You know, it's so great. Number 1, just like "Wednesday Morning 3 A.M., same number 1. The Sound of Silence, which would be number one on any album maybe I'd ever listen to. Definitely any Simon Garfunkel album, that'd be number one. And I talked about that song before. I just love that. Hello Darkness, My Old Friend. Great beginning. I love that beginning of the song. And this one has more has the electric guitar in it, which is I think good. And I like this quite a bit. I've heard people talk about like what's better, the acoustic or the electric. It's hard to say. I like them both so much. I like acoustic better sometimes in these cases, but I really like this version too. Maybe because I hear it so much on the radio, but yeah, very excellent. Of course, guitar work from Paul Simon. Great poetry from the writing. It's just a poet, just kind of a poet writer when he writes it. Yeah, it's an excellent song. Love the song. Another great album from Simon Garfunkel. This is number 83 on my list. So that's number 84 and 83 on my list. Thank you for watching this, and leave comments about what do you think about these two albums, what do you think about these two groups. I'd love to read the comments, and I just appreciate you watching and liking and subscribing. Thank you.